Yo, what's poppin', boys? Today we got some more replays, this time playing through some Disruption. I got some replays through Maxx, some replays through Droll, through some boards that we're playing through, games that go into a grind state as well. So I hope you'll enjoy those. I have another video with some more replays and with deck profile. I'll leave some links in the description for you guys. And be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Help me out with the algorithm. And let's get straight into things. Enjoy. All right, starting off with our first replay. In this hand, we're going to open with the Revolution Dragon. It's not a hard one per turn. Since we have a second one, we might as well fire one off, see what happens here. And right in our first game, we'll already be getting hit with the Maxx. So our game plan here changes instantly. We have one goal, which is to get out a Baguska and to protect it somehow. And hopefully that'll let us survive until the next turn. And then we can try to break their board and make some plays from there. So step one, find a way to get Baguska. Step two, find a way to protect it, which will be our counter trap, the Divine Strike. And step three, if possible, we'll also try to get out a Necro Valley, and all of this in minimal summons. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to use the Zefra as a low scale just to get another 4 into rotation, and we'll have the Luster Pendulum as our high scale. So the reasoning for this is we want to pend out the Dark Worm, as this will give us more advantage, or bait an Ash Blossom or maybe an Imperm or something, and hopefully let us resolve the Providence to find our counter trap. And the other reason you'll see in just a second, right after we pen these guys out. And as you can see, we get ashed here right away. So this is the second disruption already. We're going to go ahead and overlay these two into our Baguska. And now the other reason we want to scale the Luster Pendulum is to actually pop our Zefra and search for another one. Now you might be wondering, why would you want to do this? First of all, we have a Zefra in the hand for follow-up, and they can't really remove it because it's harder to interact with the hand than with the field. And second of all, we now have a Zefra card in our extra deck, which you need to banish for the counter trap to be live. So we have some decent follow-up. We have the Baguska to try to block them off, and we have a Divine Strike. So we played through 2 disruptions here and still make a board. So they're going to lead off with some Bestial shenanigans. Jewish Worm is obnoxious because that would out our Baguska here. I do get to, unfortunately, summon out all of these dudes. And they have the Flashing Fire. So the entire point of this counter trap is to try to keep the Baguska alive. So of course we're going to fire it off here. Baguska is basically how we survive the turn through the Maxx. And unfortunately, they do just have another card here to get rid of it. I feel like they should have sequenced it the other way around, because that would clear this. The counter trap was public knowledge. So they also get out the Jewish Worm here. And they're going to use the Baron to pop the Baguska now. They don't have a battle phase. So if they had sequenced this the other way around, where they use the negate, I'm forced to negate that. And then they could have used the Baron to actually clear my scale. So we open the scales here, which actually has a secret effect. If your opponent controls 2 or more monsters and you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. And we also have the Supreme King Dragon Dark Worm in our graveyard, since we use it as Exceed material. And this one also needs you to control no monsters. But this gives us more advantage, and it's much more likely to bait out the Baron's negate because of this. So we're going to lead with that. It gets negated. And now we can go straight for our free special summon with the scales. Just gives them back another body. The Revolution can now search for another Dark Worm. The on summon effect hasn't activated yet. So we actually get to grab it right here. I'm going to pop it just for fun. Honestly, there's no reason to do that. I'm going to put down the low scale here. And these guys are going to go off into Beyond the Pendulum. I'm going to go ahead and add our Light Worm. So there's a few reasons for this. First of all, it is a tuner, which will let us go into the Boral Savage. It's also a high scale, but that's not what we're going to be using it for. And if this card is summoned, you actually get to add a face-up Supreme King Dragon or Gate Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand. And that's going to let us access back our Gate Magician later in the turn, which you can then special summon out since we do have the Gate in the scale. So we're going to summon these guys out. We're going to summon out the Gate Magician here, grab the Wings of Light. Just going to go ahead and use this to just grab another copy here. And now we go for our Exceed the Pendulum. And what this is going to do is just going to add back the Dark Worm. We get to special summon a guy back from the graveyard, so we get him back into rotation here. And now we'll go for the access code. Make it really big, and now we'll grab our negate because we need to negate the Druid Worm when we send it to the graveyard, or else we get kind of screwed here because it'll just send one of our dudes. So we're gonna go ahead. We want to pop a whole bunch of stuff here. We need to clear the Baron, definitely, because this will just be able to pop a card back on his turn again. And you can maybe tag it out for something, like remake it, right? You could tag out for Gold Sword Soul, then just make another Baron. We need to clear Druid Worm so we can negate it. We need to clear the Sereneer here because he has Lubellion in graveyard. We don't want him to get a bunch of advantage here. He's already on the Regained. Maybe he's also on the Beast. And we'd also like to clear the Regained here because this just is a massive advantage engine. So at this point, I am putting the least priority on the Regained. He's going to go clear the rest of his field here. Make sure to negate this. And now the Sereneer is going to send another Regained. I'm going to end our turn. And we still have a negate. We have a bunch of big monsters. And it looks like our opponent didn't draw anything useful. So we win the game. Alrighty, for this replay, we're going to lead off with some missequencing again. If you watched the last video, link in the description, you should know what we should be leading here with. And it should be the Oracle of Zefra. So this could bait out an Ash Blossom, and it doesn't put a spell or trap in the graveyard. So our Wakaushi can still resolve. We still have another way of accessing our Zefrath, and even if we didn't have the Providence, the Wakaushi by itself actually gets us to the Zefrath, as you saw in the last video as well, due to us just making the Gallant Granite. So we definitely should have led with this to bait out an Ash Blossom, but we didn't, and we got punished for it. I mean, I intentionally played it this way to show you the Galaxy Brand way of continuing to play here. So we're just going to equip this, link off here, and then we would want to search for our Soul Piercer, and they're actually going to go ahead and negate it with an Ash Blossom. So that's kind of awkward. Now we need to find a way to still resolve the search. We can't link off the Scarecrow, but what we can do is we can use the Oracle, grab a Zefrath as discard fodder, and now we can bring back the Soul Piercer. Now we have the Wakaushi here, and we need a way to get this into the graveyard. Now we could just go for Beyond, which would be kind of pointless because it has to be in the extra monster zone to search. We could go for an IP, or we could go for an SP, which also gives us the disruption on the end board, helps us play a bit through some other hand traps, something like another Imperm, we could like dodge it, right? Or even a Nibiru, we at least get to keep stuff. Plus it has really convenient link arrows for us actually here, which is really, really nice. So we're going to go ahead and search for our motorbike here because we need to get that tuner in rotation, and that will search us for our Soul Peacemaker. God, all the names are the same. And now we get the scales, revive our tuner, level modulate it so we can go into our Boral Savage. Remember, we couldn't make this earlier because we didn't have any links in their graveyard and it would just have no effect. And now we still have access to our Zefrath. And as you can see, we have to pen summon out a whole bunch of guys here because the Little Knight points left and right, and we still have our extra monster zone available here. So we're going to go ahead, make our Electrumite here. And then we don't need to make IP, so we can just go for a big Appaloosa here off of our Astrograph. However, we're going to adjust our plans here once we see our draw off of the Electrumite. because this is a Supreme King Gate Magician. Now, we don't have a gate in the scale, so we can't summon this out with its own effect, but we do want to still get the second 7 on the field, so we're actually going to go for the Exceed the Pendulum here, making sure to add a high scale, scale 8 from our extra deck to our hand, so we can scale this, and then we can use its effect to actually summon out the Gate Magician. This will get us a bit of follow-up some more here. Grab that nice Dark Worm, and I will overlay into our Absolute, link this off into Apo, and then attempt to summon out the Vortex, but our opponent will be surrendering before. This replay will be going second. We do open our Droll, which seems very nice at first, but unfortunately our opponent just does not care about it at all with this deck, and something very terrible is going to happen. He's going to go ahead and make the Zombie Vampire, which completely screws me over because we do have a super heavy combo in hand. So if they mill any spell or trap card, it'll just turn it off. So they use it here, and we'll check the mills, and this is where I get really happy for a second because we didn't hit any spell traps, and they get really sad because he hit Astrograph. And then he takes the Dark Worm. So if he kept the Dark Worm in grave, we actually have some more gas to revive it. But this way, he's going to go ahead and link it off. And now we'll go to the face-up extra deck where we cannot bring it back from the graveyard. Very obnoxious. Fortunately, our opponent ends on just the SP here. But he's going to just get rid of our Astrograph permanently. Very unfortunate. And now, again, we missequence here. 100%, we should lead with the Oracle. He's most likely to have some form of hand traps in his hand, or he would have made a board that's more than just SP pass. So we should leave the Oracle. We already have the Zefra in hand anyways. But we make the mistake of leading with the Motorbike again. You guys should learn from my mistakes. Do as I say, not as I do, you know? So this makes it a bit more complicated as we are instantly devolved into a grind game right here. So we're going to go ahead, put another low scale out. Just going to pen 2, go battle phase to clear the SP here before we start using any of our effects. Also, while we didn't actually use the Zefra on summon because we needed to go for Electrumite here. I'm just going to send the Pegasus because the Astrograph is gone already. Use our normal summon here for a Gate Magician. Put this into scale. Resolve this just to put the low scale there, get the dead draw out of our deck, and now we'll go into SP. This will let us clear the King's Sarcophagus as well as have a bit of disruption next turn. The Droll unfortunately doesn't seem to be too live, and now we realize our next mistake. It's we put up a field spell so he can just summon out his Ballardrock for free here. Very awkward. I'm going to go ahead and use Lubellion. We're just going to use this right off the bat because if he was smart he could have just beat over it. Going to clear the Ballardrock for this turn and save our SP for the next turn. Here we get the Droll, which is very, very nice, as that means that the Magnuma can actually use its end phase effect. Bellion does get to set the Regained, unfortunately. And in the end phase, both the guys are going to come back. The SP in the main monster zone. Very convenient, giving us 3 zones to pen summon from the extra deck to. And we're going to use all of these effects here. Do a bit of chain blocking in case there's another Ash. I'm going to go ahead and clear that Regain. He's going to chain it anyways. Now we're going to get the Necro Valley because this really hurts all the Horus cards and all the zombie cards. Going to grab our Omni Negate here. Now, another misplay here is the Thuban is in attack position for no reason at all. And the other misplay is we didn't put down the Necro Valley before the battle phase because if you guys remember, right at the beginning, turn 1, he actually pitched the Al Ghul Mazera. And he's going to banish this to protect his Ballardrock, which is kind of awkward because that wouldn't have been possible if Necro Valley was on the field. But this thing would have come back anyways, so oh no, it wouldn't have because of Necro Valley. True. Yeah, so we search for the Jewess Worm, which is really obnoxious because this does present a threat to our board. And he's going to go ahead and lead with this thing. Special summon a Vengered monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. And then he gets a Ritual summon from hand or graveyard. So there's no rituals in the graveyard, which means that he has to have a ritual in hand because this isn't optional to a ritual summon. So we know one of the cards in his hand is a ritual monster here. We're going to go ahead and negate this because that's a whole ton of advantage. That card is crazy. Never going to let that resolve. Now he goes for the Jerusalem. I'm very afraid if he links it off, this could be very punishing, but he wants to overlay for the Beatrice, which is really awkward. Going to use all these effects before the battle phase. SP is going to go ahead and hit the Beatrice just to protect itself because it should be gone, right? And we also get to remove a material from the Beatrice because when it comes back, it'll have no materials. And since we know he has a ritual in hand, because there's none in the graveyard and he's using a ritual spell, we're going to go ahead and negate this. Card in his hand is going to be dead here. Now, for some reason, he doesn't attack into the Zefra Thubin, which has 0 attack. I mean, it is what it is, right? I'm going to go straight for the Beyond the Pendulum. I'm going to search for a high scale just to scale it here. Go for a ton of advantage here, popping his entire board, resolving 2 searches, and getting back a resource from our extra deck. And we'll just swing for game. No point in committing into anything else. We have full knowledge of the game state, and we have lethal on board already. Alright, in this game we're going to be playing a long grindy game against Labyrinth. We do unfortunately lose the coin flip, and Droll is pretty much just dead against the deck. They do open pretty nutty. They're setting the welcome Labyrinth, so we know when this is going to be the big welcome, most likely. And here we have to make a decision. Foolish Burial would be great for some push, but I really want to activate the Necro Valley first. This will keep him from reviving the Arius. It'll keep him off of the advantage that the Stovey Torby would get. And it pretty much kind of forces them to deal with it early. And then when it's gone, we can go ahead and go for our Foolish Burial stuff. So here they're going to go for the Ariana, get the Lady. I'm going to go for a search here. Get my Light Worm. And now he's going to punishment me here. He's going to pop the Necro Valley. And our opponent does a slight misplay here. Where they actually chain the Torby here. On a higher chain link than the Entis. So it's going to resolve while the Necro Valley is still on the field and get negated. Kind of awkward. Kind of fortunate for me, though. I'm going to go ahead and use a second Revolution here. And we're going to set up a scale. Set up a high scale. Go for some pen summoning here. Into the Electrumite. I'm going to pen summon out the Droll because it does nothing this matchup anyways. Astrograph coming out here. Grabbing another Dark Worm. And here we get hit by a Nibiru. So this is very unfortunate. We have the Wings of Light for the Gate Magician. And Foolish Burial unfortunately doesn't help us here. We don't have a normal summon. So we can't commit anything to the board here. Foolish Burial can't send a Dark Worm to revive because we control the monster. It can't send a Destrudo to revive because this is higher than level 6. Level 6 is the highest level because Destrudo needs to have at least 1 level. So we're just going to search some stuff for the next turn. Could also consider saving this for the next turn. Maybe you have more live draws that way. And they're going to go ahead and bring back the Lovely. And this bounces Nibiru back to their hands. So we still have to deal with this very, very obnoxious. Torby's going to come back. The Welcome Lab is going to reset itself on the field. He pops my Fat Nibiru token. Pitch the Evenly Match to get the Field Spell, which gives him even more pops. And he's going to reset the Big Welcome. So this already looks pretty terrible. I'm going to try to push through it anyways. And we unfortunately draw the Super Heavy Garnet. This thing does absolutely nothing for us. Very unfortunate. And he's going to go ahead and pop our low scale already while we go ahead and mill the Destrudo here. Normal the Dark Worm. He's going to use the Big Welcome. Bring out all this stuff. We have to remember he still has a Nibiru in his hand. And he's going to keep getting back more advantage. Popping the Luster. Now we're going to go ahead here. Make a Beyond the Pendulum. Uses Torby early. Pitches an Ariana, which is very nice for us. We know Nib is the last card in hand. And now we're just going to put down both of these scales. We're going to go ahead and pop as much stuff as possible before our board gets completely wiped. Big token here. There's one unknown. And they do top deck the Ariana. Now, before anything else happens, we find out next turn that the set card is a Daruma. And if you just use the Daruma, it would flip face down the Nib, delete the token, and then because Nib wasn't summoned this turn, he could flip it face up and attack me for my remaining 850 life points and I'm dead. So fortunately, they somehow don't see that line. I don't know. Maybe they're like farming dailies or something. What do I know? So instead they just set up a ton of advantage here. Very obnoxious. And we find a Wings of Light off the top. Gonna go ahead and just pen summon 4 guys. Grab some more advantage here. They put Nib back into their hand. Super obnoxious. The problem with the Boral here, unlike the Baron, is the Boral Savage needs to activate first to equip, and only then he gets the negates. So on our 5th summon, if we summon it, Baron could negate the Nibiru, but the Boral will just get chained to and still get deleted. So here's where the Daruma comes. I was thinking, oh man, maybe I could just swing over him per game. It's a big token. But unfortunately, that's not what happens. So our opponent's going to go ahead and reset the big welcome instead of the Daruma. For some reason, I guess they just want more engine, but they have so much access to it anyways. But as we will later find out, the set card is just another Daruma. So I'm going to go ahead and beat over some of my guys. He attacks into the wrong monster somehow for some reason. And it's a punishment. Oh, he gets Daruma next turn then. I misremember that, I guess. All right, so a cool thing is when one of our cards gets destroyed, face a Pendulum monster, by battle or card effect, while this card is in the X circuit, we actually get to just grab it right back. So we also get to get some more advantage back, even though he's on like chain link 7 here, putting the cards back on his field. Oh my gosh, this is so horrible. And he pops our gate 0, which would have been another 7 that we had to make an absolute. Very unlucky. So we're going to go ahead and lead with the Light Worm here. And now we're going to synchro into our Boral Savage. This will get us a negate for the Nibiru here. We have to let this Ash Blossom go through. Very unfortunate. That would have been access to another Omni. And now we get to go for the Absolute here. Link this off into SP. And at this point, we luckily get to delete his Lovely from the game. It's not going to come back. We're going to use the Vortex to negate the Nibiru because it will destroy it and just get rid of it. All right. And now here, if we check his graveyard, we have 2 copies of the Lady. We have 1 big welcome, 2 big welcome, and then banished he has the 3rd big welcome, and the Lovely is gone. So he's off of all of his big welcomes. He's off of his Lovely. He's off of his Ladies. We got rid of the Nibiru. He's going to use the IDP here for Dragon, so we're just going to go ahead and negate that right off the bat. Grab back all this advantage here. Bounce this guy back. But then he's going to see, oh, hey, he's completely out of stuff to do. And we actually managed to out-grind Labyrinth somehow. Aside from the fact that the turn before that, he could have also just made Chaos Angel and killed us. But that's why you should always stick in there. Especially in these long, drawn-out games. Both players won't be playing optimally. So the cleaner you play, the less likely it is that you're going to be the one misplaying, so you might still have a chance if you stick around there. Speaking of misplaying, I'm going to do my fair share of this duel as well. Our hand looks really juiced up. We're going to go ahead and lead with the Wakashi, and we get hit by Maxx. So once again, we're going to default to our anti-Maxx game plan. We want to get Baguska, we want to get a Counter Trap, and we want to get Necro Valley. We can also try to end on something like an IP or an SP, as that would only get like 1 more summon, but would give meaningful extra disruption. So we're gonna have to summon this out anyways. That'll get us to our Soul Piercer, and it'll let us put the Zefra in the scale here. So we get to get our Counter Trap here. And we're going to go ahead and chain block it with the Dark Worm to make sure that we get access to our Counter Trap here. And it doesn't look like they have an Ash because they didn't have anything chainable here. So I feel safe getting the Providence just as protection for my back row. If you feel a response, you should definitely search right for the Divine Strike. Alright, and now since we don't have any links in the graveyard, we can't go for an Omni Negate. And it would also just be dead under Bagooska anyways, which is our primary plan here. So we're going to go make Bagooska. And we're going to make sure that we use the Soul Piercer here, as well as our Zefra card as link material. So we can send the Soul Piercer to the graveyard for the search, and the Zefranu to the extra deck here for the Divine Strike. And we're going to search another normal summon. Since we haven't normaled yet, this doesn't give him another draw. And the whole point of this is just to use it as material with the IP. This will give us another layer of protecting the Bagooska. Setting the counter trap here, our opponent starts the game with 9 cards in his hand. It's Horus, because of course it is, why wouldn't it be? Gets the King Sarcophagus. And this is where I misplay. I get a bit trigger happy here, and I want to SP banish the King Sarcophagus. But of course, there's 8 more cards in hand. They also have another Maxx here. It's very, very likely they'll have the field spell or just another copy of it or something. So this is too greedy. And you definitely should be using the SP like you want to use your Divine Strike, just as another way of protecting your Bagooska here. So, of course, they have the field spell. I just get instantly punished. And here they search for the Black Flame Deity. If you control a Horus monster and a King Sarcophagus, you can reveal this card in your hand, then whatever. If a face-up Horus monster you control, or a face-up King Sarcophagus you control, leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon this card from your hand, then you can send all other monsters on the field to the graveyard. So you have to be very careful when trying to dismantle his board on turn 3. Keep this card in mind. And of course, another King Sarcophagus. I just get Omega punished, the SP stuff. And also do note that he did pitch a Mudora, so we'll also have to keep this in mind as well. He's going to put a bunch of guys on the field here. No point in making any exceeds, but you could go for like an SP line or something. Opts just not to. Now here you could say, oh, let's just build up some resources and everything. But I'm going to just flip to Bagooska to attack position. I feel like a Giga Chad right now. We still have one more negate for one of his back rows. If it's something like an Imperm or Called By, we can definitely just play through it. And if it's something atrocious and war crimey like a summon limit, we'll just go ahead and negate it. We'll go grab some advantage here. I resolve all this stuff here, and we have our third Supreme King Gate Magician. Zefra here to put the Zefraxiton into our extra deck. And now we're going to search for the Thuban as well. This does put back down the Zefrath, but I wanted both of the Zefra guys here in order to use their effects. Now we get to target the Zefrath with both of them, and that means only one of them basically pays the cost to destroy. And so we get to clear his back row and the King Sarcophagus here. Gonna search for Necro Valley because you know this is gonna screw over his deck. Alright, popping a Called By here. And he's gonna use all this stuff here. Got a bunch of advantage. So this just draws 3 cards. Oops, this is the one that draws 3 cards. This one makes it so this turn I cannot target his Horus monsters for attacks or with card effects. They're still destructible though. And then he gets to send a card here. He's going to send the Beyond because that's just the most material here. So we're going to go straight into our Electrumite now. Go for some more advantage. Now, before we pop this, we're going to go ahead and search for the Soul Peacemaker. Just more cards. Why wouldn't you want to have those? And I will use the Gate Magician here. So let us summon out the Astrograph. Now, since we already had all the Gate Magicians here, we're going to search for a Zefrath. Gonna go Link Climb a little bit. Go for an Exceed the Pendulum. And as you can see, we're going for an access code line here, obviously. However, we do have to be careful because there is a Mudora here, which could then shuffle back all of our attributes from the graveyard. So we already have Dark, we went through Fire, this is a Light. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead, bring back the 4 here, and now we can use the Gate Magician to summon it out, overlay into a vortex after searching for the light worm. And we can't use Necro Valley to turn off a shuffler because A, he can just chain to it, and B, we also can't banish from the graveyard to pay cost for access code. So here we make the Absolute Dragon, and now very important, we're going to chain link 1 the Absolute Dragon here, and then chain link 2 the access code. This means they cannot respond to this, and by the time they realize, oh hey look, it's an access code, they can't respond here. Now we have an Omni to get on the field. Now they have a window to respond if they toggle on, but we have the negate already. And now we're going to go ahead and make a second negate, the Savage Dragon, because we still need to deal with the card in his hand, the Black Flame Deity. Now we're just going to go ahead and start popping. They can't be targeted, but they can be destroyed. Right here, face up Horus Monster you control, or face up King Sarcophagus you control, leaves the field by an opponent's card effect. Honestly, I don't know why I didn't just use it when I popped the King Sark. I thought this was only on Horus monsters at the time. Yeah, so might have been a misplay there. Probably I could have just kept playing afterwards. Or at least we have just the Necro Valley to turn him off of all this stuff. Maybe he wanted to resolve all of his advantage first. But he gets punished here because we do have the negate for it. And they see that we have 2 more attributes for 2 more pops, and we have like 1 billion damage on field. So we win this one as well. All right, so in this hand, we are going to play around an Ash Blossom instead of playing around the Droll. So we're going to go ahead and lead with our Revolution Dragon. So we get to resolve the full Wakaushi line. This eats the Ash Blossom. We're pretty happy with this because we're thinking, nice, now we just get the Omni negate and then we're super fine. So when we search here, we then get hit by the Droll. So this is really awkward. And now we have to make some choices here. So there is no more adding that we can do, which means we can't access a counter trap. We could, of course, just go for Baguska or something, but that also feels really underwhelming. They're on 4 cards, but we have no way to protect it. So a single Imperm would completely spell my demise. Any line that gets them into an SP with the Banish just completely screws me over as well. So instead, what we're going to do here, we're just going to pen summon all of these dudes. Go into our Electrumite, and we're going to go ahead and get the Astrograph, pop the Ignis. Unfortunately, we don't get to search for another one, but this does give us access to a tuner here. Astrograph summoning itself out as well. And we're going to use the Strudo simply just for another body here. You could consider going for like an AFD or something maybe, but we can't get a field spell off of the Majesty because we're under Droll, of course, and we don't have another one in rotation anyways, and there's no other 4s in our hand we would like to summon out. So instead of going for a line with Vortex, we're instead just going to make a big Appaloosa here. And now we have linked off our Electrumite, so we can go for our Boral Savage. So we still managed to make 4 disruptions through Ash plus Droll, in a deck that famously just hard loses to Droll. They're also on 4 cards, so I'm feeling pretty good here. Call by the Grave is the most obvious bait I've seen in my entire life. There's no way we're ever going to negate this. And it's Centurion. This is the first time I've seen them, and the reason I let this resolve instead of just negating it is they still have 2 cards in hand. If any of them are a starter, we're kind of screwed. And this also needs you to pitch a card. So they go minus just to resolve it, so I'm hoping that we don't need as many negates to deal with this stuff. We're going to go ahead and just negate this back row thing. There's 1 card in hand. We have 3 monster negates. So they're going to pass here. Any high scale here just wins us the game because we'll just scale it. And then we have 3 zones to pen summon to. And it's a Dark Worm. Now, I don't really feel like normal summoning this if this gets disrupted by anything. We're kind of screwed. I don't want to use the Boral Savage negate here. Also, the Dark Worm can only search us low scales, which is really awkward, and we can't summon out the Gate Magician. So we're just going to go ahead and scale this. It's a scale 5. It's good enough. We are going to let this resolve because this by itself doesn't do anything, actually. And now we get to pen summon out a whole bunch of 4s. Just the ones with the most attack. Doesn't really matter since we're making Exceed anyways here. Now Exceed will just get any guy back. summon them out, go into access code, and we still have an Omni. We still have 3 negates. We have a big access code. And we just win through Ash plus Droll. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed the video. It was a bit longer because it was a bunch of disruption that we have defeated mercilessly as the premier Zefra Pendulum players. Pen best deck, Zefra best deck. Like, comment, subscribe if you got this far. Leave a Zefra best deck in the comment section below. See you in the next one.